Farms. The sound of the braying cattle, the smell of the manure, the taste of the attractive farmhand's lips. I love it all. I love it so much I would prefer to simulate the whole experience of farming on a PC rather than actually going to visit a real one. And what better way to do that than to play the seminal 1993 crop 'em up from this channel's favourite developer, Maxis. SimFarm was released in the early 90s for MS-DOS, which as we all know stands for Microsoft's decaying outdated software. As such, things may look a bit blown out and weird, but just go with it. Or just close your eyes and use your imagination. I promise I'll play a modern farming simulator someday, such as, Farming Simulator. Besides which, we have to start small if we want to be the change we wish to see in the world. And I wish to see a world in which the livestock we keep are allowed to live wild and free, like Gaia intended, before we unceremoniously slaughter them and feast on their tender flesh. That's why I'm going to see what happens if you don't pen your animals in. Can they find food and shelter when they have a whole map to explore? Can I create a breeding population when they are allowed to spread out over several hundred square miles? Can I round them up in time for market? All these questions, and more, will be answered unsatisfactorily over the next few minutes. The first thing I needed to do was delete all the fencing that we wouldn't be using. My experience with these type of games has led me to believe that we'd get money back for selling the items, but not in SimFarm. We had to pony up the money for demolition ourselves. Once the land was clear, I next needed to plop down my first animals. I bought 2 of everything: cows, sheep, pigs, and horses, like a mouth-watering version of Noah's Ark. As there were no barriers, these creatures will be able to mingle with each other, breeding all sorts of deliciously horrific mutants. I can't wait to see how many shigs or chaucers we get out of this. Why haven't farmers thought of this before? Next, I plopped down a bunch of hay bales, water troughs, and a barn. Although they were as free as could be, the animals were still under my stewardship, and I would encourage them not to die if it could be helped. That's it, setup done. Now all we have to do is wait and see what happens. Did it work? This could turn out to be a rather short video with virtually no chance for monetization in the future, so, quick! Here's a word from our sponsors.
Howdy y'all, do you like corn? I love my corn, and not just cause it gives me somewhere for the extra terrestrials to hide out in. Other long stem vegetation also does the trick for me. Ooh boy! That's why I subscribe to Only Plants, the only site for florophiles and those who understand the allure of a good long stem. Amen to that. There ain't nowhere else on the internet where you could see a bumpkin bumming a pumpkin. I tell you, Only Plants is the best thing since incest, and I guess I could have done Only Grants instead. That might have fit the theme better. Ah, shoot. Back to whatever gosh darn thing you were watching, boy howdy.
Yes! So immediately and predictably, the cattle spread out as far as the eye could see as soon as they were plopped. I provided food in a 3x3 cube, excluding the centre square because the animals wouldn't be able to reach it. I also plopped 9 water troughs around the outside, plus water towers to refill them if they ran dry. This seemed to work initially, but for some reason the towers stopped replenishing the troughs after a year or so I was forced to just bulldoze the troughs and replace them. It's probably because I chose an area to farm in that has very low rainfall. Occasionally, I got the message livestock cannot reach food, but something was eating it. None of my animals degraded in quality either, except the time I accidentally trapped a cow inside the hay bale fortress. I figured it would eventually eat its way out and give us a bovine equivalent to foie gras, but instead it just stood around and got very, very thirsty, degrading it to C quality. Moo! I mean, boo! After nearly 3 years, I finally got my first farm babies. 3 cows and 2 pigs. I immediately sold them to try and recoup some of the costs. We could have more babies. But then, disaster. One of my prize-winning heifers disappeared. There were only 2 explanations. 1, extraterrestrial cattle rustlers. Or 2, it wandered into town and got splattered on a road. The game doesn't tell you what happened to it, and when the same happened to one of my horses, I decided to take evasive action. The town and its dangerous traffic needed to be stopped. Using the tools that only a humble farmer would have, I attempted to build a large pen around the entire town to prevent their advancement. This time, the humans will become the livestock. Unfortunately, that wouldn't work. I tried deleting their roads, which they seemed to object to for some reason. I also tried surrounding them with windbreaks. Nothing worked. I could only build on my own plot of land, far away from the hustle and bustle of the city and their vehicular machines of murder. We started having more animal babies, so I sold some of the older and more valuable specimens this time around. I did make a few thousand, but the money that had been dashed across the urban highways nearby was quite a setback. I had lost a substantial amount of money through this endeavour, but I stuck it out a bit longer just to see if we'd just been incredibly unlucky, or if this was a trend that was likely to continue. 6 years in, and we still only had 8 animals, and our taxes were hurting us badly. A pig also went missing at this point, and I started to wonder, was this really a bad idea? Yes, as it turns out, when all my sheep suddenly vanished without nary a thread of wool left behind. It seems that farmers have been penning their livestock over millennia for very good reasons. In an attempt to salvage the homestead, I decided to turn to the world of crop farming. Now, this is really the main way to earn a living in SimFarm. I had wanted this to be an animal farm, like in that book, The Hungry Caterpillar. But needs must, so I sowed an orchard of strawberry nuts, or whatever you do to make strawberries grow. I sprayed them with fertiliser, fungicide, pesticide, and anything else ending in side. Then the pigs came in and ate everything. In line with the rules I'd set, I couldn't pen my animals, but technically, could I keep them out? Could I pen in the crops instead? I decided it wasn't really in the spirit of the challenge, so I had to watch as my animals ran rampant, leaving behind naught but barren earth. When the 2 tiny patches of remaining strawberries had ripened, a bunch of farmhands came to pick them. I started to get messages that my roads were too far away, so I was forced to build a road right from town to the centre of my land. It took some considerable swallowing of my pride to do so. Even still, I received $0 because it was such a bad crop, and a resounding increase of $0 from the second crop. The fields were draining my funds faster than the animals were. By now it was obvious that this wasn't going to work. The animals that were still alive were coming to eat all my crops, and I was running out of money to buy them any more livestock feed. I also think my flat beaver-looking horses were drinking the irrigation water, so my crops were thirsty anyway. If there's anything to be learned from this endeavour, it's that animals and crops cannot coexist peacefully. Nor can they live near busy intersections. Keep your livestock safely in pens is what I'm getting at. 8 years in and my famished beasts roam the parched sands for puddles and morsels, and there's nothing I can do to help them. I mean, I could sell them on so they might live out a nice life on a nice farm somewhere, but I think it's better this way. I think it's what they would have wanted. Either way, this challenge has been well and truly failed. Thank you, friends and enemies, for watching to the end of the video. If you enjoyed this, then shame on you for enjoying animal cruelty. Up next time we have some more Sims content, plus something completely unrelated without the word Sim in the title. Highly intriguing. Until then, goodbye.